Phil, thank you. Phil Mercer in Australia. The sports news now comes from Andy Barwell.
Thank you. Manchester United's Amad Diallo called it a dream come true in getting the winning extra-time goal against Liverpool in the FA Cup quarter-finals. He scored in the 120th minute to seal a 4-3 victory for United at Old Trafford.
It's unbelievable. It's a dream for me. It was a dream to play at Old Trafford and to score the last goal for Manchester United is a big dream for me, and I want to say thanks for the fans, to supporters, all match, and thanks.
Well, Manchester United will face second-tier side Coventry City in the FA Cup semi-finals. The holders Manchester City will play Chelsea. Chelsea got past the Championship side Leicester City 4-2, and Chelsea's boss Mauricio Pochettino was given a hard time by some of the club's fans at Stamford Bridge.
It's normal that they show that they are not agree with some, of course, decision, or because it's the feeling that they realize of the situation.
In the Premier League, West Ham United had an added time goal disallowed after a lengthy VAR check in what proved to be a 1-1 draw against fourth place Aston Villa. Now, with 8 matches left in the title challenge in Spain's La Liga, Barcelona went second, 8 points off the pace setters Real Madrid. Barcelona 3-0 winners away at Atletico Madrid. While Leverkusen moved closer to Germany's Bundesliga title, 10 points clear at the top again. Xabi Alonso's side defeating Freiburg 3-2 away. Italian Serie A leaders Inter Milan were held 1 apiece at home by defending champions Napoli, and Paris Saint-Germain are 12 points clear in the French top flight. They defeated Montpellier 6-2, a hat-trick there for Kylian Mbappe. Carlos Alcaraz defeated Daniel Medvedev 7-6, 6-1 to win the men's singles title at the Indian Wells Tennis. The women's title went to the world number 1 Iga Swiatek. And the men's world golf number 1 Scotty Scheffler was the winner at the TPC Players Championship at Sawgrass in Florida.
Andy, thank you. Andy Barwell. A BBC investigation has revealed extensive abuse of African women working in Oman as domestic servants. Dozens of Malawian women who've been lured there by recruiting agents have told BBC Africa Eye that they were beaten, raped and treated like prisoners while working in Oman. Azizat Ola Lua met some of those affected, warning that this report contains distressing details from the start.
I feel like I'm in prison. They threatened to starve me to death.
This is audio from videos which were recorded by domestic workers in Oman.
If I die, no one will know because they will dump my body.
They are all from Malawi, one of the world's poorest countries.
The very first day I arrived, my passport was taken away from me. They know whatever they can do to us, we can never escape.
They share footage of their cramped, sparse living conditions, often communicating whilst hiding in a toilet in order to speak without being discovered. The women came together in a WhatsApp group after being duped by dishonest recruitment agents into going to Oman. Georgina was promised a lucrative job in Dubai, but instead she found herself in the Omani capital, Muscat.
I was not allowed to rest. I was waking up at 3 a.m. and going to bed at 1 a.m. The most difficult thing that made me desperate to escape was the boss forcing me to have sex with him. It was so painful because I had no way to say no. He threatened me and said if I shouted, he would shoot me. I got badly injured because it wasn't only him. He would bring friends and they would pay him after.
It's common for households in the Gulf to have live-in maids. In Oman alone, there are an estimated 300,000 domestic workers, most of them from Africa or Asia. Under the kafala sponsorship system, they are legally bound to their employer. Ekaterina runs an NGO which supports migrant workers in the Gulf.
The laws that are in place prohibit a domestic worker to leave the employer. She cannot change jobs and she cannot leave the country no matter how you are treated.
The Malawian government asked Ekaterina to help negotiate the release of over 50 women. One woman, 23-year-old Ida, died in Oman, and her body was also brought home. The Malawi government says it has paid over $160,000 for these women to return. Ekaterina believes this sets a dangerous precedent.
The majority of these women have been released because money has been paid to the employer, from $1,000 to $2,000 per person just for the release. How can you buy somebody else's freedom?
Oman's Labour Ministry has told the BBC that it only received one complaint from a Malawian domestic worker in the 2 years to 2023. It said it is prohibited for employers to impose any form of forced labor on workers or to keep their private documents without their written consent.
Before we go, we're just getting reports of an Israeli military operation getting underway at the Shifa hospital in Gaza. Details as we get it.
Thanks for joining us. In an hour, Crowd Science wants to know how useful is the body mass index.
So there needs to be some thought given into constructing a BMI that's probably based on the genetics of those people, rather than prescribing something where, one feels like a failure from the start.
Then, People Fixing the World is asking, how can we make it easier to speak up in the workplace?
Anonymity is a key aspect of whistleblowing and speaking up. So protecting people's anonymity is enabling more conversations to happen.
And at 4:30 GMT, the conversation is with two female puppeteers.
It's hard for you to believe that that's just a puppet. Children ask, is it alive? Adults come at the end and they touch him because they cannot really imagine that he's moved by us. We disappear for them.
You've all that to come on the BBC World Service.
This week, the American country music star Jordan Davis tells us about the importance of positive and uplifting news stories. In Senegal, we hear how school children are getting to surf the web without internet access. Here in Britain, a baby monkey's been born. He's bright orange. Find out why. And is there a doctor on board? Thankfully, 7 stood up when a woman went into labour on a flight from Jordan. Join me, Harry Bly, for the Happy Pod after this news update.
BBC News with David Harper. Vladimir Putin has said his victory in Russia's presidential election shows the trust of the people in its current path. After early results indicated he'd won almost 90% of the vote, Mr. Putin said that when Russia was united, it could not be intimidated or suppressed. With all opposition in effect banned, Mr. Putin's victory was inevitable. Among international reaction to the election, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said it was clear that Mr. Putin would stop at nothing to rule forever. Meanwhile, President Putin has made a rare public mention of the name of the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. He claimed he had agreed to a prisoner swap before Navalny's death in prison last month. Mr. Putin has previously appeared reluctant to acknowledge Navalny. In other news, a BBC investigation has revealed that dozens of women from Malawi working as domestic servants in Oman have suffered physical and sexual abuse. The Labour Ministry in Oman said forced labour was illegal there. Uber has agreed to pay $178 million to compensate thousands of taxi drivers in Australia who claimed they lost income when the rideshare company aggressively entered the local market. The lawyers who led the case said the payment would be the 5th largest class action settlement in Australian history. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised that Palestinian civilians will be able to leave Rafah before Israeli forces launch their assault on the Gaza city. He said Israel's goal was to eliminate terrorists there. There have been violent clashes at the end of a top-flight football match in Turkey. Supporters of Trabzonspor attacked visiting Fenerbahce players who were celebrating their victory. A Mexican ballerina has led more than 5,000 people in a dance class in the main square in Mexico City. The event, believed to be the largest of its kind, was organised by the Mexican Ministry of Culture to allow people of all ages to discover the beauty of classical dance. The crowd urged to let the art and beauty of dance be part of their lives. BBC News.
Unfortunately, I think we all live in a world where the bad news sells. It's not the good stuff that's being heard. It's almost like my wish, my hope, that going forward, we start focusing on the positive and not so much on the bad.
A call to action for more good news stories from this American country music star.
I'm Jordan Davis, and this is the Happy Pod from the BBC World Service.
Hello, I'm Harry Bly. This week we also hear from the team bringing online education offline to children in Senegal.
In the box is a small portable server. Anyone nearby can connect their tablet computer, phone, or laptop and start browsing.
The bright orange baby monkey.
It's quite odd because they almost look like they don't belong.
Born at a zoo here in the UK. And speaking of babies, is there a doctor on board?
You know, it's a difficult enough childbirth in general, but 30,000 feet in the air, you know, I can only imagine how stressful this must have been for her.
We meet the man who helped ensure a mother and baby came back down to Earth safely.
I'm Dr. Hassan Khan, and I helped deliver a baby in the plane. You're listening to The Happy Bit.
Let's begin with some music, country music. This is Good News Sold, and it's all about how much better we'd all feel if there was less doom and gloom in the news. You can see why we like it. It's by one of the biggest stars of country music, Jordan Davis. He's been speaking to Adam Porter and said he liked the synergy with the Happy Pod.
Definitely a perfect fit. That was a song that came to me a couple years ago. You know, really kind of when felt like the news was nothing bad. And unfortunately, I think we all live in a world where the bad news sells. It's not the good stuff that's being heard. It's almost like my wish, my hope that going forward, we start focusing on the positive and not so much on the bad.
So how did the song come to you then? Because I know you normally have a hand in writing your songs, but not this one.
My brother's the co-writer on it. He wrote it, sent it to me the same day they wrote it. And I remember thinking like, hey man, why didn't you bring this to me whenever we were writing? He was like, man, I was going to, but I threw it out in the room. He was writing with two great songwriters, Jordan Rowe and Cole Taylor. And we just started writing and it just kind of fell out, so we had to finish it. So I was like, well, I wish I was a writer on it, but I'm going to cut it.
Now, we as journalists know that news avoidance is a big thing, people not wanting to turn on the news because they think it's going to be really bad. So do you think we could do more to put good news stories on?
I think we probably all could. You know, it's not just journalists or news anchors. I think it's even just everyday people like myself. You know, if you see somebody that needs some help, help them out. You know, I think that's what my favorite thing about the song is. It's helping somebody that needs help on a flat tire. It's sharing a story about a reunion with a son and a father. It's those little things that I think are just as important as the big things. I don't think it's necessarily on y'all. You know, that's not fair. I think it's on us to kind of highlight that stuff. And me personally, I think it's somebody that has the platform, you know, gets a chance to stand on a stage every night. You know, that's my chance to kind of highlight some of those things and kind of combat the papers or the news channels that is kind of maybe just trying to get clicks or sell some story. It's on all of us.
I mean, to be fair to you, some of your biggest songs are really positive, aren't they? I'm thinking Next Thing You Know or Buy Dirt. A few days for eternity. I mean, people think country music is all heartbreak and murder ballads, but it doesn't have to be that way, does it?
And I'm definitely guilty of having a few of those myself, but I think what really I took a turn in my career as a songwriter, as an artist, was whenever I just started writing really honestly. My life, my kids, the struggles I was going through.
It's away from the potential that he might have to break down barriers as a national prime minister because he's got tons of money. So in a sense for him, those barriers don't exist.
No, I'm pretty sure that it's still an incredible achievement what he did.
Oh no, sure, I agree. Yeah.
I suppose a lot of times for younger people, it's more about the perception of whether you can achieve something versus the actual obstacle or the steps towards achieving that goal. So if I, for example, if I were to tell you that how fast can you run 100 meters, you probably say, I'll go 20 seconds.
Very slowly is the answer. Yes.
But if I were to tell you in fact, everyone in your village or in your town can achieve the 15-second marker. Once you've had that sense of that perception of, oh, if someone can do it, or if everyone can do it in this case, then I can do it too. And then you're right, you may never achieve the 15-second mark, but at least you can get to 17.
What's your own situation, if you don't mind me asking, Jack? And are you
Asian? So I'm from Chinese background.
Right.
I don't see many people of my heritage in the political world. And it certainly, I think, makes me feel, at least think twice if I were to ever kind of pursue this career path.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I hadn't really occurred to me before, but I can't think of one prime minister, one politician of Chinese origin. And you're quite right. And there will be other ethnicities in this country which aren't represented. How ambitious are you, and do you feel that you have a level playing field with your peers when it comes to the things that you're hoping to achieve, Jack?
I don't think so. I mean, first of all, I'm not looking to kind of pursue a career in politics. No. Although that's certainly something I explored when I was in school, and I think at one point there was one candidate for, was it Fulham, I think, where I was living at the time. He was running for the area, and I thought he was of South Asian background, and I thought it was incredibly empowering just seeing that kind of similar face. Because I could just imagine if I were to ever do something like this, even if someone who's white, is white British, and then they have the right accent, the right background, even before we get to the candidacy, the polls, I would think I would just feel inferior.
And it's a real shame, and I wonder how many other thousands of people or more you represent. I personally think that whatever job it is, if you want to become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or a radio presenter, or it doesn't really matter. And if you can identify and see people at the top of your profession who are like you, who have the same background as you, that has to be an inspiration, doesn't it? Because you think, well, if they can, so can I.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What area of professional life are you hoping to get into, or are you in? And do you feel that you are adequately represented in that, if you don't mind me asking?
Yes, I work as a doctor.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit of a stereotype, isn't it? Envisioning growing up, either becoming a lawyer.
Lawyer or a doctor, or if not a doctor, a pharmacist, perhaps, yes.
Yeah. And I think we're relatively well represented in this regard. And I think part of it is because I've always had this, my mum used to tell me, oh, so, what kind of doctor do you want to be? In that sense. And so, yeah, I think the stereotype, it really affects people. Yeah.
All right, well, listen, it's lovely talking to you. Thank you so much. Dottie is in Bristol. Dottie, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. What would you like to say?
I just want to say that when I heard the name of the person who was pronounced as the next Welsh First Minister, what bugged me was that it was then announced that he was black. And I was thinking, when is it ever going to be that we can just say somebody is somebody, whatever they do, without having to distinguish their ethnicity, their ability, their sexual, their gender, whatever. Why can we just not, when are we ever going to get to just accepting people for who they are?
Do you think it's actually counterproductive to even mention it?
I do. I just think it's incredibly sad. But we need to do it, and we do. We need to do it, don't we? It happens all the time. Why do we need to?
I suppose there's a hope that, I mean, if they are the first to do so. That's always going to be commented upon. But I suppose there's a sort of the hope that this will be a positive thing, because, you know, I often hear from people that if they are of colour, they don't feel that they have equal opportunities. They feel that they feel often you hear the phrase "Dotty underrepresented." I suppose it's a reaction to that, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'm a mixed race person, but I look pretty white. I mean, I've been in a situation where I've actually said to somebody, you know, my father was black, my mother was white, and somebody said to me, why do you need to say that? You could have got away with it.
Got away with it.
You know, for goodness sake, why would I need to do that? And I just think, the day will probably never come, but I so wish it would, when we could just be Dotty, Fred, Amy, whoever, without the label of black, disabled, whatever. We could just be people and just be accepted, and that diversity was normal.
A friend of mine actually tells quite a nice story, and it sounds a little bit sort of twee, but actually I think it's quite sort of I think it's quite poignant. And he was about going to pick up a son from school, from primary school, and standing with another parent, and the friend was white and had a white child. The other person involved was black and had a black child. And they got talking to another little boy who was waiting to their parents, and these two came out, the white child and the black child. They came out, and the little boy said, "Oh, that's my friend."
So what we're basically trying to do is ensure we have a genetically stable and healthy population in a captive situation, so that if things do improve in the wild and there is an opportunity for us to be able to send individuals back to the wild where it's safe to do so, then we can do that. But whilst obviously they are still facing challenges out in their range countries, then we know we've got a really healthy, stable population in our zoos. So the more babies we can have born and healthy, and we know that, you know, we're providing them with the right diet and the right environment, and that we can breed them and look after them properly, then we're ticking all of the boxes for ensuring that we're, you know, conserving this species for the future.
Sarah Forsyth. And if you'd like to see this rare baby for yourself or help choose its name, you can go to whipsnadezoo.org. Staying with baby animals, vets at a wildlife centre in the US state of Virginia have devised an ingenious way of comforting an abandoned fox cub or kit, donning fox masks when they feed or handle it. Melissa Stanley is the founder and director of the Richmond Wildlife Centre.
We're always utilizing masks to conceal us as humans. You don't want them to think that you're mom. If we think about how a human baby, or even chimpanzees and other mammals, how they're relating with their mothers through eyesight, I think it's really important that if she were to open her eyes, I don't want the first thing for her to see is to be a person. Such a young fox is not something that we see often at our wildlife center, and so this is our first neonate, and so I needed an emergency mask. We put a plea out, and a great donor bought the mask, and we got it 24 hours later. She was admitted at 80 grams. This morning she weighed 144 grams, so she's eating really well. She's doing much better now that she has a fake stuffed mom fox to nurse on. The exciting news is that we did find some fox kits that are similar in weight and age for her, and we will be transferring her in the upcoming days to get with those kits as quickly as possible.
And you can see this baby fox and Melissa in her mask. Just head over to the BBC website and search Fox Mask. Coming up in this podcast, a pregnant stingray, but how?
People have written and said, well, they can hold male sperm, you know, for years. And I'm like, she's never been around a male.
Take a listen to this. This is Notes of Chai featuring Prakash, one of a series of tracks that's been created at a recording studio in Germany using the tremors of people with Parkinson's disease. The project, called Tremors vs. Tremors, was designed to help provide relief for people with the condition. Wanda Bettin is one of the sound engineers who worked on the tracks at Dachhaus in Berlin.
The role of the tremor in these songs is to make each one of the instruments that it's applied to sound unique. We put a lot of effort in writing their own stories, in sounding, and also using the uniqueness of their tremors.
And what they can achieve. I wonder what you and others think about that.
Probably not a lot. I must admit, when he was appointed, I thought, wow, yeah, good. But I also have to say that when Maggie Thatcher was appointed, I thought, yay, a woman.
Yeah, flying the flag for women.
Great.
What was her first cabinet? It was all white men in black and white suits.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I have to confess, if it's a confession, that's the first time in my life I've ever voted Conservative because I thought it was so great.
Because it was a woman.
It was a woman.
Yeah.
I've grown up and learned a lot since.
Interesting talking to you. Thanks, Dottie. This text says, Richard, I'm of South Asian descent. Sunak's ascension as an unelected PM is the first instance a triumph for plurocrats. Is in the first instance a triumph for plurocrats. His ethnicity is only of secondary importance. In every instance, people in high office should be judged on the interests they represent. As we have observed, brown and black people in high office can be just as reactionary as their white peers. In sum, the cardinal variable that matters most isn't race or gender, but good old-fashioned class. 0345 606 0973. And I remind you in a couple of moments' time, too, what I want to discuss after 2 o'clock.
LBC. Here we go again. Running a small business, I should be used to early mornings. Gotta stay ahead of the competition. After all, the early bird catches the sun loungers by the pool.
With an American Express business card, spend securely and earn points on business transactions to put towards your dream holiday.
Right by the bar.